All right, hi everybody. My name's Dave here from DC Recruiting. I came across an article about questions that you can ask employers in an interview. I know there's been lots of words written about this and lots of articles and probably other podcast episodes, all that sort of stuff. But I thought I'd throw something else together. I think I've done this before too, but I just found some what I consider to be new material, at least new material for me. And so I thought I'd share it with you guys. So without further ado, so obviously interviews are still a big tool for people, employers, to decide who they're going to hire. They spend a lot of time asking you questions, and obviously they give you a time to ask them questions back. And the worst thing you can do is have nothing to ask them. So here's some questions that I found that I like. So, there's a standard ones that I use a lot. I advise people use. One of my favorites, I'll just do one of them actually, because I'll go over some of the other ones here. But one of my favorites has always been to ask the employer what they love about their job. It's a good direct question to them. It can really give you an outlet into their culture, sort of what their values are about, which is some of what these other questions are going to be like. That I'm going to read off to you. So yeah, it's a good barometer to see, what keeps them going, what keeps them coming to work, I find it to be a tough question for an employer. They've been grilling you with tougher questions, and to make them think a bit and give you some insight into kind of what makes the company tick. So, anyways, here's some other questions that I found. So. Again, the heading here is company culture. So it says, the question is, can you describe the company culture and values? What makes working here unique? And I think that, a lot of companies on their websites, they have they'll have that information there, and it's great for you to read, and it's great for you to maybe know a little bit about it before your interview. But it's always nice to hear it from someone who's potentially going to be your boss, or at least someone that's on the same level as your potential new supervisor or boss, whatever. So it'd be nice to hear it from them too, to see if it's resonating from their webpage and blog posts and media releases, if they have all that. See if that's actually translating to people on the ground, and whether it's kind of like, do they actually believe it? You know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at it. The other heading is team dynamics, and the question is, how would you describe the team I'll be working with? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Now, you may not get all that information. I don't think that an HR person, say, is going to necessarily know what their strengths and weaknesses are like. But failing being able to tell you specific things about your team, they will definitely be able to loop back to that company culture and say, well, this team is they follow our company culture, and if they can explain what that culture is, then again, it's like it can be like a double whammy question, right? Where you find out whether or not they're following, or they believe in, at least their mission statements, and also if it is a direct supervisor and not just an HR person or someone who's not directly linked to the team you'll be working with, then maybe they will be able to give you some specific answers, and that'd be great. I mean, it'd be good for you to know going in what they're good at, and again, like it would be, the perfect thing would be to hear your interviewer say, well, a weak part of the team is the skills that you have, which is why we're interested in hiring someone to fill that need, right? So that would be awesome if you hear something like that in an interview. Anyways, moving on. There's next one is about project scope. That's the heading, and it says, can you give me a breakdown of the typical projects or tasks I'll be responsible for? And that's again, it's a big, open, broad question. If it's, maybe don't use that one if it's something really specific. If you're going in there specifically to do one task over and over again, say it's a blue collar kind of a manufacturing job. If your job is going to be the same all the time, pretty much, then maybe not ask that. But you can ask about we go into this later with the next heading, but to segue into it, you can just ask, okay, listen, I want If it's not project scope, it can be the scope of manufacturing, right? It's like, okay, who's on the left of me? Who's on the right of me? How can I fit in? I want to make sure that I'm not making extra work for other people. So, can you basically tell me, what's the next step after what I would do? It's something like that. I'm making this up, sorry, but something like that, so that you can at least show that you're understanding that you want to be a good team member, right? That's the important part. The last section here, last thing of this section here is career path. It says, what's the typical career path for someone in this role? Are there opportunities for advancement within the company? And again, that's hard. Sometimes you're going to catch someone really off guard. This really goes to you got to think back to what your original goal was with the job. Some people, I've said this in some of my other podcasts, but some people just want to be worker bees. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But some people do want to advance. I always found it a little challenging, or not challenging. That's not the right adjective. But I always found it a little bit off. I don't know. For someone in an interview, like I've interviewed lots of people too, but for them to ask what their advancement is there room to grow? And and the standard answer is going to be, yeah, sure. I mean, what's a manager going to say? Yeah, sure. There's room to grow. Everyone can have a shot at moving up. But they're not going to tell you, like, if it's happened within the last 10 years that someone's actually moved up there or whatever. And I always found it to be a little bit, like I want the person to be focusing on getting the job that they have. That's the kind of question that I would expect to get from, or for you to ask an employer once you've been there for a while. Let's say you're doing a performance appraisal interview or some kind of meeting separate. If you make a separate meeting with your employer to say, hey, what's the pathway looking like? I've learned as much as I can, I think, about this job. Can I make a move? What's the procedure for wanting to move up, or is it possible to move up? I think in an interview it's not as appropriate to ask that, but again, this is just my opinion here. Okay, so then if you can ask questions specifically about the role, daily task. Can you describe a typical day in the role? Good question to ask. I don't think that needs a lot of elaboration. Performance expectations. It says, what are the key performance indicators or metrics to measure for success in this position? Now, I would be a little bit more specific about that because there's a job description, likely, and that tells you, what they want you to do, what your job duties are going to be. But if you want to be more specific about it, ask, okay, within the first 3 months, what are you expecting me to know how to do? Within the first year, like, is it a long learning? And again, any employer is going to say, yeah, you're always going to be learning on the job, and that's a good thing to hear from an employer. But it'd be nice to hear, like, if you ask a specific question, even if you don't ask, what do I need to know in 3 months? Just ask, do I need to know? Are there checkpoints? Do I need to know this by this point? Do I need to know this set of duties by this point? What's the timeline like? And if they can answer you in an organized, if the employer can answer you in an organized fashion, then you'll get an idea of what their training's like, right? So is it on-the-job training where you just get thrown into the fire? Again, some people thrive in that. Some people don't. Some people need structure. So if you're a person that needs structure and then you hear, oh, no, we're just going to, you're going to sit down and read binders for a few days about health and safety stuff, and then you're going to be out on the job. And, I'm not saying turn the job down, but at least you know what you're walking into. That's all. Okay. There's one about autonomy and decision making. How much autonomy will I have in making decisions with my role? Again, I'm being a little bit critical of some of these. If you're the new guy or new gal, you will have no autonomy. So let's just keep that clear. You should not be making decisions on your own without checking in with someone first if you just started. However, if it's a down the road question, right? Then that's okay. If you're phrasing the question like, oh, let's say I'm here for a few years, and how much control over decision making am I going to have? That's okay. But don't, like, on your first day, like, can I, like, sign checks and stuff on my first day? I mean, maybe some jobs you can, but most of them you can't. So just keep that in mind. Feedback and development. What is the process? This is a good one. I like this one. What is the process for receiving feedback and professional development opportunities? That's kind of two questions in one. I kind of like the first part better. What's the process for receiving feedback? Full stop. Yeah, and again, it just gives you a chance to gauge what they do for, developing their employees. If they don't answer, and they don't know, well, then I guess you're not getting a performance appraisal anytime. So that's just, I mean, again, I'm not saying don't take jobs if they're not, fully like, oh yeah, you're gonna get a 2 month and 3 month and a this and that. Don't be. I'm not saying don't take the job. It's just you understand that you might have to take a bigger, um, take control over that a little bit more yourself, and just like, I'm not gonna say corner your boss, but just say, hey, can we schedule a meeting? I want to know how I'm doing. That might be on you. That's all. Again, not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm not trying to judge that. I'm just saying these questions that you ask, you'll get an idea of what the company's actually like when you work there. Okay, so again, now this is, I already touched on a question in this category when I said ask the interviewer what they like about their job. So this is that kind of stuff. It says about the interviewer's experience. So personal journey. Can you share your personal experience working with this company? What do you enjoy most about your role? So it's kind of like what I said first, just with the added, can you give me a personal experience? That's kind of, I find that to be a little bit ballsy, but I like it. I like that. It's like basically you're telling to you're asking your HR person or supervisor or whoever is interviewing. It's like, how did you cut your teeth here? What did you do? What have you done that you're proud of? And how did it, basically you're asking, how did it contribute to you becoming a supervisor? And then what do you like most about your role? I like that. Challenges and rewards. What are the biggest challenges and rewards working in this department? Very vague. Not a bad question. But it can easily be sloughed off with the employer. So I don't think you're going to learn too much there, unless they can't answer it, right? Unless they stumble and like, oh gee, I don't know. But for a lot of manufacturing places, the challenges are going to be logistics always. Getting parts in, getting parts out. That's always hard. And then rewards would just be, it's just your everyday stuff. You work several the plant, or if it's manufacturing, it's great to know that we've worked for 3 years without a major accident, an injury, or we've broken records here with the amount of widgets that we've produced, and it makes us feel really good as a team and whatever, that kind of stuff. That's probably the generic answers you're going to get for that. But it's good. It's better to get a generic answer than to have the employer be like, oh gee, I don't know, and they can't think of anything. Okay, and the last thing here is, pardon me, advice for new hires. What advice would you give someone to this role? And I think that's hilarious, right? I do think that's a funny question to ask, because really what the answer is, basically keep your mouth shut and learn. No, I'm just kidding. Not quite that harsh, but no, pay attention to what's going on around you. Give suggestions if you think it's valid, but for the most part, for your first 6 months, just take it in. Start understanding what the culture is like, and ask lots of questions, and that's it. That's what my advice would be. If I was interviewing you people out there, I would say, yeah, not, I wouldn't say keep your mouth shut, but I'd say, like, keep your ears open, keep your eyes open, and ask a ton of questions. Okay, and that's what you want to hear from an employer. I said last thing, but there's one other section here about company's future. Again, you may not get some of the answers for these because they might not know, but again, there's a point to it. So if you ask company goals, what are the company's long-term goals and aspirations? They might not tell you that, but it'd be nice to know that if they don't give you specifics, you can ask, hey, do you guys do long-term planning here and all that kind of stuff? You want to hear that, yes, they do, right? Whether or not those plans come to fruition or not is another thing, but it'd be nice to know if they actually think, they're thinking ahead about where they want to go as a business, right? So again, they may not give you specifics, but if they give you something, then at least they have a plan, or they think about having a plan at least, because you know how things go. The markets can change, things can happen that they weren't necessarily anticipating, but it's good to have a plan. Industry trends. How is the company adapting to industry trends and challenges? And in an interview, you're probably not going to get the specific examples, but you might hear something like, oh, we have a team of people that sit down and they really look at the market and see where things are going, like a business team. You'll hear that term sometimes. We have a business team, and they put the appropriate measures in place. They might not give you specifics with this, right? Because if you're just sitting down in the chair talking to them for maybe the first or second time, they're not going to go into their whole strategic plan with you, but they can say what they do, to meet changes. And that's the kind of things you're going to want to hear Again, that they have a plan or they have people allocated to keep up with what's going on in the marketplace. And then the last thing is innovation technology. It says, what are the company's plans for innovation and technology adoption? And again, same thing as the one above. You're not going to get, oh, we're they're not going to give you trade secrets about technology they're developing for the next year or the year after. But you might hear things like, oh, we have our R&D folks are great. They really collaborate with management. Like, you want to hear those kind of things, like we have, even if it's just one person, we have this one person who is looking at what we have, and they make suggestions all the time to make things more efficient. And they're always keeping an eye on trade shows, that kind of thing, to see what we can bring into our place. They're always bringing suggestions. So, basically, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing exactly, but this is how we handle that situation. So that's the kind of stuff you want to hear. So asking these kind of questions is great. Don't forget, the interview is a conversation. It's supposed to be. So don't be that person that says, when they ask you if you have any questions, they're like, no, I'm good, you answered everything, because they never will. And again, one tip, the pro tip here that I've said in my other things about interviewing is, don't forget that most of the time interviewers have a pad of paper in front of them, and they have their questions written down that they want to ask you. So don't be afraid to write these questions down, or questions you come up with on your own. Write them down, take them in so you don't forget, and interview the interviewer. Make sure you're doing that, because believe me, it makes a difference. It really makes you look more prepared, and that you are really taking this, your opportunity to speak with the employer, that you're taking it very seriously. And that will definitely score you points with any interviewer. So my name's Dave. I am the owner of DC Recruiting. I love helping people out with interviewing tips and tricks and resume writing. Also, of course, I work with employers to find people for them. That's what my business is about. But have a great day, and hopefully some of these tips help, and we'll catch you next time.